The Ruins in the Back Mountain. This is a story from my university days. After frantically studying and finally gaining admission to my dream university, I found myself struggling to keep up with the classes, and I became utterly exhausted both mentally and physically. The university life I had envisioned was far removed from the reality I faced, and there were times when I even contemplated suicide. Realizing I couldn't continue like this, I decided to take a break and return to my family home. I booked a flight that very day and headed to Hokkaido. When my mother saw that I had lost nearly 20 kilograms in just 3 months after enrollment, she was astonished and didn't ask me any questions as she prepared my sleeping quarters. Even my strict father, seeing my condition, said words I had never heard from him before. "Don't push yourself." After 2 days back home, I had developed a habit of leaving my textbooks by my bedside, and I began to regret escaping to my family home. But looking back, I realized it was just an obsession driving me. No matter how blindly I studied, nothing would stick in my mind. My mother advised me to take a walk in the back mountain to clear my head. Listening to her suggestion, I felt grateful for having a mother like her. I realized that I had forgotten even those small, precious feelings, and it made me profoundly sad. The back mountain, which I hadn't entered since elementary school, remained unchanged and right there as always. With a hint of nostalgia, I ventured down the overgrown path. After walking about 200 meters along the flat ground, gazing up at the rows of conifer trees on either side, a house suddenly appeared before me. It was clearly abandoned, with a half-collapsed exterior and a thatched roof, a sight once common in Hokkaido. I had walked this path countless times as a child, playing in the back mountain with many friends, but had I truly forgotten the existence of this dilapidated house? As if drawn by something, I approached the ruin. The sliding door that should have led to the entrance had long since rotted away, barely hanging by one hinge. I slipped through and entered the house, my heart filled with an indescribable curiosity. Upon entering, I saw a staircase leading to the second floor on my right, and to the left was a long hallway with several sliding doors at the end. Looking up at the entrance hall, I noticed a dusty mirror reflecting my image. Hanging on the post of the staircase was an old pendulum clock, which surprisingly was still ticking. The sound of the clock ticking felt as if it was echoing from somewhere far away. Now that I think about it, I can only describe it as a strong impulse that compelled me to move. Despite being a generally timid person, I climbed the staircase of that abandoned house. As I ascended the steep steps, the pounding of my heart and the ticking of the pendulum clock echoed loudly, almost like a warning in my ears. At the top of the stairs, there was a sliding door to my left, illuminated eerily by sunlight coming in from the right. Everything appeared tinged in yellow, and it felt as if that place, that moment, was frozen in time. The warning that I shouldn't open the door solidified in my mind, yet contrary to that instinct, my hands found their way to the door, and I pushed it open. The room beyond was surprisingly spacious, filled with tatami mats, and at the back stood what appeared to be an altar in front of a Buddhist altar. To my astonishment, the altar, which shouldn't have been occupied by anyone, was adorned with fruits and chrysanthemums, and in the center, surrounded by flowers, was a portrait of a woman. As I felt drawn toward the altar, the familiar face in the portrait wore a high school uniform and was slightly looking down. Undoubtedly, it was my own image.